This was a real paranormal incident that science still can't explain. During the Vietnam War, 650 French and American soldiers vanished near Romeo Point. Later, Korean soldiers also began disappearing there. The incident was eventually classified as a top military secret, and years later, it was adapted into a movie. The story takes place in Vietnam in 1972. Early one morning, several Korean soldiers are dozing off during their watch when a distress call suddenly comes over the radio. The voice belongs to the missing Wild Mule 3 squad. This is already the third distress signal they've received from the squad that month, but before the soldiers can respond, the transmission cuts out. The next day, military command questions the only known survivor of Wild Mule 3. He insists that every member of his squad is dead. He personally collected their dog tags, so there's no way any of them could still be alive. To uncover the truth, command assembles a 9-man unit called the Field Mouse Squad. The calm and level-headed Taein is placed in command, with the decisive Changrok serving as his second in command. The youngest member, Young-soo, is only 18. The rest of the men come from different units and barely know one another. Taein is an experienced veteran with excellent aim and sharp instincts. Their mission is to enter Romeo Point, a non-combat zone, and locate the missing Wild Mule 3 squad. Since the area isn't an active battlefield, the men assume this will be a simple search and rescue mission. The squad reaches its destination by boat. Before heading in, they take a group photo to remember the mission. But none of them notices that their 9-man squad has somehow become a group of 10. Even more terrifying, no one senses that anything is wrong. Not long after entering the bamboo forest, the squad comes under heavy fire. Taein quickly locates the firing position and destroys it with a rocket launcher. When the men move in, they discover that the shooter is a young Vietnamese woman soldier. A body that has clearly been dead for days lies beside her, and a string of bells is wrapped around her wrist. The squad finds nothing else of value. Taein can't bring himself to kill the woman, so he orders the men to keep moving. Following their map, they soon reach the entrance to Romeo Point. A stone marker stands there with a Chinese inscription describing the history of the land. A temple once stood nearby, but it was destroyed during the war. The final line on the marker is a warning. Those with blood on their hands shall never return. The message is clear, but these battle-hardened soldiers pay no attention and walk straight into the fog-covered highlands. That night, they set up camp in the open, but they can't get a signal from headquarters. Byung-hoon, whose family runs a funeral business, notices something else disturbing. This place gets almost no sunlight and stays damp and foggy all year, making it completely unsuitable for burials. And yet, the entire area feels like one enormous graveyard. The next morning, their radio finally starts working again. But moments after Taein reports their coordinates, an abandoned building suddenly appears in front of them. It's only a few dozen yards from camp, yet not one of them saw it the night before. Taein searches the building and finds it empty, so he turns it into their temporary base. While searching the rooms, Young-soo and another soldier find an old yellowed photograph. Neither of them looks closely at the image before putting it away. Taein then divides the squad into 2 groups and sends them out to search the surrounding area. But the mission has barely begun when the strange events start. While relieving himself, Byung-hoon becomes separated from his group. When he finally catches up, none of the soldiers responds to him, no matter how loudly he calls out. One of them is wearing a helmet with the words, "Jung-suk, wait for me," written across it. Before Byung-hoon can understand what's happening, all the soldiers suddenly drop to the ground. Thinking an enemy must be nearby, he quickly does the same. But a moment later, the entire group vanishes into thin air. Byung-hoon has never witnessed anything so unnatural. When the others return to base and realize he's missing, they immediately retrace their route. They eventually find him near a ruined temple. Strangely, incense is still burning inside the abandoned building. This area is supposed to be forbidden even to the Vietnamese, so no one should be coming here. The men can't make sense of it. Back at the base, Byung-hoon recounts what happened while inspecting his teammates' helmets. The moment he mentions the name Young-suk, Kyu-tae becomes visibly nervous. The helmet belongs to one of his old comrades, who is also among the missing soldiers. Just then, a group of American soldiers arrives by helicopter. Their leader tells Taein that the building was once an American base, U.S. Headquarters operated there early in the war. But after the station troops repeatedly encountered strange events, the base was abandoned. Some equipment was too difficult to remove, so the Americans supposedly return every Thursday to inspect it. The soldier also reveals that during the French colonial period, an entire unit vanished in this area. Even the search party sent after them never returned. Before leaving, he warns the Field Mouse squad not to enter the classified room on the second floor and urges them to get out of Romeo Point as quickly as possible. Every time the Americans visit, they place bets on whether the soldiers stationed here will survive. As far as they're concerned, Taein's squad has no chance of making it through 7 days. With that, the Americans board their helicopter and leave. But as soon as they're gone, something strange happens again. The radio operator receives a distress call from a French soldier. The caller identifies himself as Jacques and claims to be somewhere near the building. The French military left Vietnam more than a decade ago. Even stranger, the radio operator doesn't speak French. He begins to wonder if he imagined the entire transmission. That night, the men use a radio they found to play some music. But screams and agonized cries suddenly cut through the song, leaving everyone frozen in fear. From a dark corner of the room, a pair of eerie eyes watches them in silence. Taein quickly steps in and turns off the radio, but the horrifying atmosphere has already left everyone deeply unsettled. Unable to sleep, Taein paces around his room. As he passes a window, he spots a young woman dressed in white standing outside. A second later, she disappears. The following morning, 2 soldiers find Jung Yul's body hanging from the roof. His body is covered in bruises, yet no one heard anything during the night. Taein assumes Vietnamese forces are responsible, so the squad grabs its weapons and searches the area. When they return to the ruined temple, several fresh sticks of incense are once again burning in the censer. The same thing happened the day before, which means someone appears to be coming here every day to pay their respects. Hoping to catch whoever it is, the soldiers set a trap near the temple. But when Taein reports Jung Yul's death to headquarters, his commander gives him a horrifying piece of information. Jung Yul was one of the missing members of Wild Mule 3. Taein insists that even after Jung Yul's death, 9 men remain in his squad. Headquarters tells him that his unit only had 9 men when it left. Only then do the soldiers realize that Jung Yul was the mysterious 10th man who appeared after they reached Romeo Point. None of them can even remember what he looked like. Byung-hoon then recalls handing his camera to Jung Yul, which explains why only the original 9 soldiers appear in their group photo. A stranger joined their squad, and not one of them noticed. Before going to sleep, Taein sees the woman in white again. She leads him to an old French cemetery where one of the graves bears the name Jacques. Lying on the ground is a bell identical to the ones worn by the Vietnamese woman soldier. Every new clue points to the same conclusion. Something is deeply wrong with Romeo Point. Kyu-tae also remembers taking a camera from his missing comrade. Young-suk was the person that soldier had been longing to see. As Kyu-tae sinks into the memory, Byung-hoon suddenly speaks in Jung Yul's voice and asks why he's so attached to a camera that was never his. The man standing in front of Kyu-tae suddenly seems to be the dead Jung Yul. Terrified, Kyu-tae runs out of the base and accidentally stumbles into the trap set near the temple. By the time the others reach him, he's barely alive. In his arms, he's clutching the helmet marked with the words, "Jung-suk, wait for me." Kyu-tae's death sends the remaining soldiers into a panic. Some demand that they abandon the mission immediately. Changrok forces everyone to calm down and promises to get them out alive, but he and Taein disagree about what to do next. Changrok only wants to recover the missing soldiers' dog tags so they can report back to headquarters. Taein still wants to uncover the truth about Romeo Point. On the 4th day, the squad once again splits into 2 groups. Taein tries to retrace their original route, but he can't find the bamboo forest they entered through. Meanwhile, Changrok secretly throws some of the missing soldiers' dog tags into the grass, hoping to fake the discovery of evidence and end the mission early. As long as they can claim they found a trace of the missing squad, they'll have something to report to headquarters. While the men are calling command, Changrok notices something moving inside the nearby bamboo forest. He grabs his weapon and enters the trees. When a shadowy figure darts past, he leaves the group and chases after it. After he fails to return, the others search everywhere. All they find is Changrok's helmet lying near the edge of a cliff. Elsewhere, Taein discovers a helicopter that crashed years ago. The cabin is filled with mummified bodies, and several of them are the same American soldiers who visited the base 2 days earlier. The squad finally realizes those Americans were never alive. The remaining soldiers also discover the bodies of Wild Mule 3 floating in the river. After encountering one ghost after another, Byung-hoon suffers a complete mental breakdown. On the way back, he repeatedly sees the dead Kyu-tae. His teammates tell him to shoot at anything he sees, but during the return trip, he mistakes Taein and the others for ghosts and shoots one of his own men dead. Taein has no choice but to abandon the mission and lead the survivors back to the building. The men remember the equipment the Americans supposedly left in the classified room upstairs, but when they finally open the door, everything inside is covered in dust and cobwebs. No one has been coming here for regular inspections. Before dawn, they finally contact headquarters. A rescue helicopter is on the way, but it can't arrive until sunrise. No one knows whether they'll survive that long. At that moment, the missing Changrok suddenly returns to the base. Taein orders him to state his name, rank, and service number to prove his identity. Changrok answers every question correctly, and Taein slowly lowers his guard. But as soon as he finishes answering, Changrok turns and kills one of the soldiers with a blade. The others open fire and kill him. Taein realizes the spirits are possessing the soldiers one by one. He immediately orders everyone to report their rank and service number. When one soldier's expression suddenly turns unnatural, Taein shoots him on the spot. But before dying, the possessed soldier has already pulled the pin from a grenade. Young-soo manages to throw it out the window, but the blast leaves him blind. As Taein bandages Young-soo's eyes, Byung-hoon also becomes possessed. He kills the last remaining soldier and then charges at Taein. Taein is forced to shoot him dead. Now only Taein and the wounded Young-soo remain. Taein finds the old photograph in Young-soo's possession. It shows a group of French soldiers posing with a woman in white outside the building. The woman is the same Vietnamese soldier they encountered when they first arrived at Romeo Point. Even after all these years, she hasn't aged at all. When the woman in white appears again, Taein knows he'll soon be possessed too. To protect Young-soo, he guides the blind soldier's rifle toward himself. The moment the woman possesses him, Taein orders Young-soo to fire. At sunrise, the rescue helicopter finally arrives, but only Young-soo remains inside the building. The bodies of his teammates and every trace of blood have completely vanished. He remembers the warning carved into the stone marker. Those with blood on their hands shall never return. Romeo Point was Young-soo's first battlefield. Perhaps he survived because he had never killed anyone before entering the area. After the helicopter flies away, another distress call comes through the radio on the second floor. This time, the voice belongs to Taein. Some later claim that Vietnamese forces had wiped out the missing units, then used their radios to impersonate the dead and lure search parties into an ambush. But that theory could never explain everything that happened at Romeo Point. Whatever the truth may be, war brings nothing but suffering. Soldiers and civilians alike are all its victims.